What if I told you that beneath miles of ancient ice lies a secret older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, older than any monument we call ancient? That long before recorded history, before Egypt rose along the Nile, there existed a civilization so advanced that its very existence challenges everything we believe about human origins. This isn't folklore whispered around campfires. It's carved into the landscape itself, hidden beneath Antarctica's eternal winter. A city frozen in time, its structures aligned with mathematical precision, its streets buried under ice that has not melted in 12,000 years. And then, suddenly the climate shifted. The ice came. An entire world vanished beneath the frozen silence. How could such a place exist without leaving traces in our textbooks? Were its builders truly human? Or did they possess knowledge we have yet to rediscover? And if their legacy is real, what secrets lie waiting beneath the ice? Tonight, we journey to the bottom of the world. We descend into the age before the ice. And we ask the forbidden question: did an advanced civilization once thrive where now only penguins walk? Before satellites mapped every corner of Earth, before explorers planted flags on frozen shores, Antarctica was a mystery. Not a continent on maps, but a blank space at the bottom of the world. A void filled with speculation, fear, and wonder. This is where our story begins, with whispers of land where no land should be, with ancient maps that show coastlines beneath the ice. Imagine a world where the southern reaches were unknown territory. Medieval cartographers drew dragons and sea monsters in those waters. Renaissance scholars debated whether a great southern continent existed at all. They called it Terra Australis Incognita, the unknown southern land, a place of pure theory needed to balance the northern land masses. And yet, in 1513, something extraordinary appeared. A Turkish admiral named Piri Reis created a map, not from exploration, but from older sources now lost. The Piri Reis map shows the coast of Antarctica with stunning detail, mountains, bays, inlets. But here is the mystery. The coastline it depicts is not buried under ice. It shows the land as it would appear without its frozen shell, a coastline that hasn't been visible for at least 6,000 years, perhaps much longer. To the modern mind, this is impossible. Antarctica was not officially discovered until 1820. How could a map from 1513 show its true geography? Some dismiss it as coincidence or misidentification. Others argue the map was based on ancient sources, charts created by seafarers who sailed those waters when the land was still green. This paradox sits at the heart of the Antarctic mystery. If the Piri Reis map is accurate, then someone mapped Antarctica before the ice, before history as we know it began. The possibility is staggering. It suggests that advanced navigation, cartography, and perhaps civilization itself existed far earlier than we admit. The map is not alone. In 1737, Philippe Boich published a map showing Antarctica as two landmasses separated by a channel of water. Modern seismic surveys confirm this. Beneath the ice, Antarctica is indeed divided. How did Boich know this in the 18th century when the continent was still largely unexplored and entirely ice-covered? Another map, the Orontius Phineas map of 1531, shows Antarctica free of ice, with rivers, mountains, and interior detail. Again, the coastline matches what we now know lies beneath the glaciers. Again, the question, how? Scholars have offered explanations. Perhaps the maps are based on speculation, lucky guesses shaped by artistic convention. Perhaps they depict other land masses, misidentified. But the precision is troubling. The shapes match too closely. The details align too well. It is as if the mapmakers had access to knowledge that should not exist. Consider the context. Around the world, flood myths speak of a time before the waters rose. The Bible tells of Noah. Mesopotamia remembers Ziusidra. India speaks of Manu. What if these stories preserve memory not just of floods, but of a world that existed before the climate shifted? A world where Antarctica was not a frozen wasteland, but a living continent? Geologists tell us that Antarctica was once warm. Millions of years ago, it was covered with forests, inhabited by dinosaurs. But human civilization? That is another matter. The ice sheets are thought to be at least 34 million years old. Any trace of human presence should be impossible, yet the maps whisper otherwise. They suggest that within the last 10,000 to 15,000 years, Antarctica's coastline was visible, perhaps even inhabited. This aligns with the end of the last ice age, when sea levels rose dramatically and climates shifted across the globe. Could a civilization have existed on Antarctica's shores during that narrow window of time? As we step into this journey, we will walk coastline by coastline, anomaly by anomaly. From the Piri Reis map to modern satellite imagery, from ancient texts that hint at lost lands to contemporary discoveries beneath the ice. We will meet researchers who dare to ask uncomfortable questions, explorers who have seen structures that do not fit our timeline, and scientists whose findings challenge orthodox history. We will not stop at maps. Beyond the cartography lie geological mysteries, thermal anomalies detected from space, perfectly geometric formations captured by ground-penetrating radar. Beyond conventional archaeology lies the work of Graham Hancock, Ranflem ADH, and others who propose that Antarctica was home to an advanced culture before the ice consumed it. For now, let us linger with those old maps. Parchment yellowed with age, ink faded but lines still clear. Maps that show what should not be shown. Coastlines that should not be known. A continent depicted centuries before its discovery, drawn as if from memory of a world now buried under 2 miles of ice. It is here that our journey begins. In the libraries of Istanbul, in the archives of Paris, among documents that preserve impossible knowledge. Knowledge that tells us Antarctica was not always frozen. That once, long ago, it may have been home to something extraordinary. Something that vanished when the ice came. Something that might still be there, waiting beneath the eternal cold. In the early 21st century, technology gave us new eyes. Satellites orbiting Earth began mapping the planet with unprecedented detail, piercing clouds, measuring temperatures, detecting subtle variations invisible to human sight. Among the most remote regions scanned was Antarctica, the last great wilderness. What those satellites found would spark decades of speculation and wonder. Imagine the scene. Scientists in climate research facilities monitoring data streams from space. They were looking for ice thickness, temperature gradients, signs of geological activity. But in the images returning from satellite sensors, something unexpected appeared. Geometric patterns beneath the ice. Straight lines where nature prefers curves. Right angles in a landscape of chaos. The anomalies were subtle at first, visible only in certain wavelengths, enhanced by computer analysis. But once noticed, they cannot be ignored. In several locations across Antarctica, the ice seemed to conceal structures. Not random formations, but patterns suggesting design. Rectangles, grids, formations that resembled city blocks when viewed from above. One such image, widely circulated online, shows what appears to be a massive oval structure embedded in the ice near the coast. It measures roughly 400 meters across, far too large and too regular to be in natural formation. Another satellite image reveals a series of linear features radiating from a central point, like streets from a city square, buried under glacial cover. Skeptics were quick to dismiss these as pareidolia, the human tendency to see patterns where none exist. Ice creates strange formations, they argued. Pressure ridges, crevasses, and glacial movements can produce geometric shapes. The mind, eager for mystery, interprets chaos as order. But some researchers pushed back. They pointed out that the patterns appear in locations where ancient maps suggested coastlines once existed. They noted that ground-penetrating radar, which can see through ice, confirmed the presence of solid structures beneath, not just ice formations but rock, metal, materials that do not occur naturally in those configurations. One particularly striking discovery came from thermal imaging. Satellites detected heat signatures in certain regions of Antarctica, areas where geothermal activity is not expected. The warmth suggested cavities, spaces beneath the ice where air or water flows. In some cases, these thermal anomalies aligned perfectly with the geometric patterns seen in other wavelengths. What could cause such heat? Volcanic activity is one explanation, and Antarctica does have active volcanoes. But the distribution of these thermal spots did not match known volcanic zones. They clustered in patterns, as if following infrastructure, tunnels, chambers, remnants of something built rather than born from the earth. To understand the significance, we must consider what lies beneath Antarctica's ice. The continent is not a solid sheet of frozen water. It is land, mountains, valleys, lakes, all buried under ice averaging 1.9 kilometers thick. In some places, the ice reaches nearly 5 kilometers deep. Beneath it lies a hidden landscape, a world unseen for millennia. Modern technology allows us to map this buried world. Ground-penetrating radar sends pulses through the ice, measuring echoes from the rock below. The resulting images reveal mountains taller than the Alps, canyons deeper than the Grand Canyon, and vast subglacial lakes warmed by geothermal heat. Lake Vostok, for example, is one of the largest freshwater lakes on Earth, sealed beneath 4 kilometers of ice for 15 million years. But among these natural features, some researchers claim to see anomalies. Formations too straight, too angular, too organized. In 2016, a team analyzing satellite data reported a pyramid-shaped peak in the Ellsworth Mountains. Its faces were symmetrical, its apex sharp. Images went viral, with some claiming it was a man-made structure, a monument buried by ice. Geologists countered that mountains can form pyramidal shapes through natural erosion. The peak in question, they said, was simply a nunatak, an exposed mountain summit surrounded by ice. And yet the symmetry was remarkable. Its faces aligned almost perfectly, its geometry too precise for comfort. The debate continues. For every anomaly detected, there are two explanations, natural and artificial. Science favors the natural, as it must. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and satellite images alone are not enough. To prove the existence of structures beneath the ice, one must drill, excavate, bring back physical samples. But Antarctica is not easily explored. The ice is thick, the climate lethal, the logistics staggering. Drilling through kilometers of ice requires years of preparation, millions in funding, and international cooperation. Even then, what you reach is uncertain. You might find rock, water, or nothing at all. Still, some have tried. In the early 2000s, a private expedition claimed to have used ground-penetrating radar to scan a region near the coast. Their data, they said, revealed chambers, walls, and corridors beneath the ice. They published images online, sparking debate and ridicule in equal measure. Mainstream scientists dismissed the findings as noise, misinterpretation, or hoax. And yet the images persist. The thermal signatures remain. The geometric patterns do not vanish when scrutinized. They sit in databases, waiting for explanation, challenging us to choose between the comfortable and the unsettling. Imagine living in a world where these anomalies are real, where beneath the Antarctic ice lies not just rock and water, but walls, streets, buildings. A city frozen in time, preserved by the very ice that hides it. The structures would be ancient beyond measure, older than any civilization we know. Their builders vanished, their history erased, their legacy waiting in silence. To the people of the distant past, Antarctica may not have been a frozen wasteland, but a homeland. Rivers flowed, forests grew, communities thrived. Then the climate shifted. The ice came, not slowly but in catastrophic waves. Glaciers advanced, temperatures plummeted, and within a few generations, the land was unrecognizable. Survivors fled, carrying only memory. Cities were abandoned, left to be swallowed by the encroaching ice. In this view, the satellite images are not illusions. They are echoes, fragments of a world that once was visible now only to machines that can see through ice. And the question becomes not whether structures exist, but who built them and why. As we close this chapter, one truth remains. Antarctica is not fully known. Beneath its ice lies a hidden world, mapped but not explored, scanned but not understood. Whether that world contains only natural wonders or something more, something built, remains one of the great mysteries of our time. The satellites watch. The ice keeps its secrets. And somewhere, deep beneath the frozen surface, the truth waits. Long before satellites, before modern science, there were stories. Whispers passed down through generations. Myths carved into stone, texts written by scholars who claim knowledge of lands beyond the known world. Among these ancient accounts, a few speak of a great continent in the far south, a place of mystery, power, and loss. The Greek philosopher Plato, writing in the 4th century BCE, told of Atlantis, a powerful civilization that vanished in a single day and night, swallowed by the sea. Most scholars place Atlantis in the Mediterranean or the Atlantic, but some researchers have proposed a radical reinterpretation. What if Atlantis was not destroyed by water, but by ice? What if the great cataclysm Plato described was not a flood, but a freeze? This theory, championed by researchers like Rand Flemadiech and Charles Hapgood, suggests that Antarctica was once located in a temperate zone, not at the South Pole, but further north, where the climate allowed life to flourish. Then, approximately 12,000 years ago, a sudden shift occurred. The Earth's crust moved, a phenomenon called crustal displacement, and Antarctica slid into its current polar position. The climate changed almost overnight. Ice descended, and an entire civilization was frozen in place. The idea is controversial, rejected by mainstream geology. Yet it offers an explanation for the ancient maps, for the geometric anomalies, for the persistent myths of lost civilizations. If Antarctica was once habitable, then its buried structures are not impossible. They are remnants of a world that existed before the ice. Other ancient texts hint at southern lands. The Maori people of New Zealand preserve legends of a great continent called Rutas, said to lie far to the south. In Hindu cosmology, the Puranas describe lands at the edge of the world, realms of ice and mystery where the gods once dwelt. Even medieval Islamic scholars wrote of vast southern territories, unmapped but rumored. The historian Herodotus, writing in the 5th century BCE, mentioned lands beyond the known world, places where the sun behaved strangely and the seasons were reversed. Could these be distant memories of Antarctica, passed down through seafaring cultures who once navigated further south than we imagine? Consider the Polynesians, master navigators who crossed thousands of miles of open ocean using only stars, currents, and oral tradition. Their voyages reached Easter Island, the most remote inhabited place on Earth, and some researchers suggest they may have sailed even further toward the Antarctic coast during brief periods when the ice receded. If ancient peoples did reach Antarctica, what would they have found? In the early Holocene, roughly 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, the climate was warmer. The ice sheets were still extensive, but the coastlines may have been partially exposed. Rivers could have flowed, vegetation could have clung to rocky shores, and life, both human and animal, could have existed in pockets along the edge of the frozen interior. Archaeological evidence is scarce, but not absent. In the 1990s, researchers found pollen samples in Antarctic ice cores that suggested temperate plant species once grew on the continent. The pollen was dated to approximately 12,000 years ago, aligning with the end of the last ice age. If plants grew there, could humans have lived there? The notion challenges our understanding of history. We are taught that civilization began in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley around 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. Before that, humanity lived as hunter-gatherers, nomadic and primitive. The idea of an advanced culture existing 12,000 years ago, especially in Antarctica, seems absurd. Yet anomalies persist. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, dated to 11,000 years ago, features massive stone pillars carved with intricate symbols. It predates agriculture, predates writing, and yet demonstrates sophisticated planning and effort. If such a site could exist in Turkey, why not elsewhere? Why not in a place now hidden by ice? From the perspective of alternative history, Antarctica was not always frozen. It was home to a seafaring culture, advanced in astronomy, navigation, and engineering. This culture mapped the coastlines of the world, traded with distant peoples, and built monuments that aligned with celestial patterns. When the ice came, they fled, scattering across the globe. Their knowledge seeded the civilizations that followed: Sumeria, Egypt, Mesoamerica. In this view, the sudden emergence of writing, mathematics, and monumental architecture in multiple regions around 3000 BCE is not independent invention, but inheritance. The survivors of the frozen continent carried their wisdom to new lands, becoming the gods and teachers remembered in myth. The Anunnaki of Mesopotamia, the Viracocha of Peru, the Osiris of Egypt, all echoes of the same legacy. Critics dismiss this as fantasy, but the patterns are striking. Across the world, pyramid structures appear, often aligned with the stars. Flood myths proliferate, describing a time when the world was remade. And ancient maps, like those of Pyre Reis and Orontius Phineus, depict knowledge that should not exist. Imagine for a moment that the myths are memory. That Plato's Atlantis, though misplaced in location, was real in essence. That the stories of lost continents, of elder races, of knowledge given by the gods, all point toward the same truth. Humanity's origins are older and stranger than we know. Antarctica, in this framework, is not just a frozen desert. It is a tomb, a place where an entire civilization lies preserved, its cities intact beneath the ice, its secrets waiting for the day when warming climates or human courage finally reveal them. The ancient texts do not prove this, but they invite the question. And in the absence of definitive evidence, the question lingers, echoing across millennia, whispered in the wind that howls over the frozen plateau. In recent decades, a handful of researchers have dared to challenge the orthodox narrative of human history. They are not archaeologists in the traditional sense, nor do they work within the confines of academic institutions. Instead, they write books, produce documentaries, and travel to remote sites, arguing that civilization is far older than we believe. Among them, Graham Hancock stands as one of the most prominent voices. Hancock's work, particularly his book Fingerprints of the Gods, proposes that an advanced civilization existed during the last ice age. This culture, he suggests, was global in reach, possessing knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering that rivals or exceeds our own. When the Ice Age ended catastrophically around 12,000 years ago, this civilization was destroyed. Its survivors scattered, bringing their knowledge to the emerging cultures of the post-flood world. Antarctica features prominently in Hancock's hypothesis. He points to the ancient maps, the geometric anomalies detected by satellites, and the geological evidence of rapid climate change. He argues that Antarctica, before it was covered in ice, could have been the homeland of this lost civilization. The ice did not form gradually over millions of years, he suggests, but rapidly during a period of catastrophic climate shift. This aligns with the work of Charles Hapgood, a professor of science who in the 1950s proposed the theory of Earth crustal displacement. Hapgood suggested that the outer crust of the Earth can shift relative to its interior, causing entire continents to move into different climate zones within a short period. Albert Einstein himself found the theory intriguing and wrote a foreword to Hapgood's book, though mainstream geologists have since rejected it. If crustal displacement occurred, then Antarctica could have moved from a temperate latitude to its current polar position in a matter of centuries or even decades. The sudden shift would explain the rapid onset of glaciation, the preservation of temperate plant species in ice cores, and the alignment of ancient maps with pre-glacial coastlines. Rand Flemeth, building on Hapgood's work, co-authored When the Sky Fell, which explicitly identifies Antarctica as the location of Atlantis. He argues that the continent was habitable until approximately 9,600 BCE, the exact date Plato gave for the destruction of Atlantis. According to Flemeth, the crustal displacement triggered by a comet impact or asteroid strike caused massive earthquakes, tsunamis, and climate change, plunging Antarctica into ice and destroying the civilization that thrived there. The evidence Flemeth cites includes the Piri-Reis map, the Orontius-Phineas map, and geological studies showing that Antarctica's ice sheets are younger than previously thought. He also points to mythological accounts from around the world that describe a golden age followed by cataclysm, a pattern consistent with the sudden freezing of a populated continent. Critics argue that there is no physical evidence of human habitation in Antarctica. No artifacts have been found, no ruins excavated. But Hancock and others counter that the ice itself prevents discovery. If cities exist beneath miles of glacial cover, they would be invisible to traditional archaeology. Only advanced technology, ground-penetrating radar, seismic surveys, and drilling can reveal what lies below. Some expeditions have claimed to find evidence. In the 1960s, a Soviet team drilling in Antarctica reported encountering a freshwater lake beneath the ice, Lake Vostok, which had been sealed for millions of years. When samples were finally extracted in the 21st century, they contained microbes unknown to science, suggesting that life could survive in isolation beneath the ice. If microbes could survive, could structures? In 2012, a team using radar imaging claimed to have detected a massive anomaly beneath the ice near the Wilkes Land region. The formation, they said, was consistent with a meteorite impact crater, but some researchers speculated it could be something more. The anomaly was circular, immense, and showed signs of metallic composition. Could it be the remains of a city, or perhaps a base built by an advanced culture? The mainstream scientific community remains skeptical. Antarctica, they argue, has been frozen for at least 34 million years, far too long for any human civilization to have existed there. The ice cores, which provide a detailed record of Earth's climate history, show no signs of human activity. The continent's geology is harsh, volcanic, and unstable, hardly a hospitable environment for building cities. And yet, the questions persist. If Antarctica was frozen for 34 million years, how do we explain the ancient maps? If no one lived there, how do we account for the geometric anomalies detected by satellites? If the ice is millions of years old, how do we explain the pollen samples dated to 12,000 years ago? Hancock suggests that orthodox science is too rigid, too invested in the current paradigm to consider alternatives. He points to the history of geology and archaeology, fields that have repeatedly been forced to revise their timelines as new evidence emerges. The discovery of Göbekli Tepe pushed back the origins of monumental architecture by 6,000 years. The realization that the Sphinx may be older than previously thought challenges Egyptian chronology. Why, he asks, should we assume we have the full picture? From a perspective of alternative researchers, the frozen city beneath Antarctica is not a question of if, but when it will be revealed. The ice is melting. Satellite technology is improving. Ground-penetrating radar is becoming more sophisticated. Eventually, they argue, the truth will emerge. Structures will be uncovered, artifacts will be found, and the history of human civilization will be rewritten. Imagine the implications. If a city is found beneath the ice, dated to 12,000 years ago or earlier, it would shatter our understanding of history. It would prove that advanced civilizations existed long before Sumeria, that knowledge was lost and rediscovered, that humanity's story is not a simple arc of progress, but a cycle of rise and fall. To the people who built that city, if they existed, the world was different. Antarctica was not the frozen wasteland we know, but a living continent. They built temples, perhaps, or observatories. They carved stone, worked metal, studied the stars. Then the ice came, and their world ended. They fled, carrying what they could, leaving behind only ruins buried too deep for us to find. As we move forward, the theories of Hancock, Flemeth, and others remain speculative. But they are not without foundation. The maps, the myths, the anomalies, they form a pattern, a thread of evidence that suggests something extraordinary lies beneath the ice. Whether that something is a city, a base, or simply natural formations misinterpreted, only time will reveal. The researchers watch. The ice slowly recedes, and beneath the frozen silence, the truth, whatever it may be, waits. To understand whether a city could exist beneath Antarctica's ice, we must first understand the ice itself. This is not a simple layer of frozen water. It is a living, shifting mass, a geological force that has shaped the continent for millions of years. It flows like a river, grinds like a millstone, and preserves like amber. Antarctica holds 90% of the world's ice. If it all melted, sea levels would rise by nearly 60 meters, drowning every coastal city on Earth. The ice sheet is divided into two regions: East Antarctica, where the ice is ancient and stable, and West Antarctica, where it is younger and more dynamic. Between them lies the Transantarctic Mountains, a range that rivals the Rockies, mostly buried beneath the glaciers. The ice itself is a time capsule. As snow falls, it compresses into ice, trapping air, dust, and pollen. Ice cores drilled from the sheet provide a record of Earth's climate stretching back 800,000 years. By analyzing the layers, scientists can see temperature changes, volcanic eruptions, and atmospheric composition. It is one of the most valuable archives of Earth's history. But the ice also hides. Beneath it lies a world of mountains, valleys, and lakes. Lake Vostok, discovered in the 1970s, is one of the largest freshwater bodies on Earth, sealed beneath 4 kilometers of ice. When Russian scientists finally drilled into it in 2012, they found microbial life that had been isolated for millions of years. The discovery proved that life could endure in extreme isolation, raising questions about what else might survive beneath the ice. In 2018, scientists using ice-penetrating radar made another discovery. Beneath the ice of East Antarctica, they found evidence of ancient riverbeds, valleys, and even what appeared to be a vast canyon system, larger than the Grand Canyon. The landscape, now frozen, was once carved by flowing water, suggesting that Antarctica was not always ice-covered. This aligns with geological studies showing that Antarctica was once part of the supercontinent Gondwana, which included South America, Africa, India, and Australia. When Gondwana broke apart around 180 million years ago, Antarctica drifted southward. For millions of years, it was covered with forests, home to dinosaurs and later to mammals. Fossils of ferns, trees, and even coal deposits have been found, proving that the continent once supported abundant life. But the ice came. Around 34 million years ago, the climate cooled, and glaciers began to form. By 14 million years ago, the ice sheet was fully established. For most of that time, Antarctica has been a frozen desert, inhospitable to life, sealed under ice that flows and shifts but never fully melts. Or so we thought. Recent studies suggest that the ice may not have been continuous. During interglacial periods, when Earth's climate warmed, parts of Antarctica's coast may have been ice-free. Pollen samples found in ice cores, dated to 12,000 years ago, suggest that temperate plants grew on the continent during the early Holocene. If plants grew, then the land was exposed. If the land was exposed, then it could have been inhabited. This is the window that alternative researchers focus on. Between 15,000 and 10,000 years ago, as the last ice age ended, Earth's climate was in flux. Sea levels rose, ice sheets retreated, and coastlines changed dramatically. During this period, Antarctica's shores may have been habitable, at least in pockets. If a civilization existed there, this would have been their time. Imagine the continent during that brief window. The interior still frozen, a vast white plateau stretching to the horizon. But along the coasts, exposed rock, flowing rivers, patches of tundra vegetation. Seals, penguins, and fish abundant in the surrounding ocean. A harsh environment, yes, but survivable. Perhaps even fertile for people adapted to cold climates. To build a city in such a place would require knowledge, planning, and resources. The builders would need to quarry stone, transport it, and shape it with precision. They would need to understand the seasons, the tides, the movements of the ice. They would need to create shelter, store food, and navigate the treacherous waters surrounding the continent. But if the ancient maps are accurate, then such a culture did exist. They not only survived, but thrived, developing advanced cartography, astronomy, and possibly architecture. When the ice advanced again, as the Holocene gave way to colder cycles, they were forced to abandon their cities and flee. What they left behind was swallowed by glaciers, buried under ice that would not retreat for millennia. From a scientific perspective, the challenge is dating. Ice moves, compresses, and distorts. Structures buried beneath it would be crushed, fragmented, scattered. Even if buildings once stood on Antarctica's shores, the weight of kilometers of ice would reduce them to rubble. Proving that such structures existed would require not just finding anomalies, but recovering physical samples, artifacts that could be dated and analyzed. Yet the ice also preserves. In Siberia, mammoths have been found frozen for tens of thousands of years, their flesh intact, their DNA recoverable. In glaciers around the world, ancient tools, clothing, and even human remains have been discovered, perfectly preserved by the cold. If ice can preserve a mammoth, could it not also preserve a city? The key lies in location. If the structures were built on bedrock, shielded from the grinding flow of glaciers, they might survive intact. Valleys, caves, or sheltered coastal regions could provide protection. And if the ice advanced rapidly, as some theories suggest, the structures might have been sealed before they could be destroyed, frozen in place like insects in amber. Modern technology offers hope. Ground-penetrating radar can see through ice, revealing the shape of the bedrock below. Seismic surveys can detect density variations, distinguishing rock from ice, and possibly from artificial materials like metal or shaped stone. Thermal imaging from satellites can identify heat signatures, suggesting cavities, tunnels, or spaces where structures might stand. In 2020, a research team using radar imaging claimed to have detected a large rectangular formation beneath the ice near the coast of Queen Maud Land. The formation was over 300 meters long, with straight edges and right angles. The team published their findings, cautiously suggesting it could be a geological feature. But the precision of the shape sparked renewed speculation. What if it is a foundation? What if it is a wall? What if beneath the ice, a city really does wait, its streets silent, its buildings dark, its history frozen in time? As we close this chapter, one truth remains. Antarctica is not fully explored. The ice conceals more than we have uncovered. Whether it hides only natural wonders or something built by hands, we do not yet know. But the possibility lingers. And with each new satellite pass, each new radar scan, we inch closer to an answer. The ice shifts, technology advances, and somewhere beneath the frozen surface, the truth lies waiting, patient as the cold itself. If a city truly lies beneath Antarctica's ice, who built it? Where do they come from, and where do they go? These questions lead us into the realm of speculation, where myth and theory intertwine, where ancient astronauts, lost civilizations, and hidden knowledge converge. Some researchers propose that the builders were not human at all, or at least not entirely. They point to myths from around the world that describe gods or visitors from the sky, beings who brought knowledge to humanity. The Anunnaki of Mesopotamia, the Viracocha of the Andes, the Nephilim of the Bible, all are remembered as tall, powerful, and wise teachers who descended from above. In this view, Antarctica was not a human settlement, but an outpost, a base established by extraterrestrial visitors who came to Earth in the distant past. They chose Antarctica because it was remote, defensible, and rich in resources. They built structures using technology beyond our understanding, aligned with the stars, powered by geothermal energy. When their mission ended, or when the ice came, they abandoned the site, leaving behind only traces for us to find. The evidence cited for this theory includes the geometric precision of the satellite anomalies, the thermal signatures that suggest energy sources, and the alignment of certain formations with celestial patterns. Proponents also point to the advanced knowledge required to create the ancient maps, suggesting that such cartography could only have been produced by a culture with aerial or even space-based perspective. Critics dismiss this as pseudoscience, but the theory persists. It offers an explanation for the sudden emergence of civilization, the megalithic structures found around the world, and the shared myths of gods and giants. If beings from another world did visit Earth, Antarctica would be an ideal location for their base, isolated, cold, and now buried beyond reach. Another theory suggests that the builders were human, but far more advanced than we credit. This is the premise of the lost civilization hypothesis. According to this view, a global culture existed during the Ice Age, spread across now-submerged continents and coastlines. They possessed knowledge of astronomy, navigation, and engineering that allowed them to build monuments, map the world, and perhaps even predict the coming cataclysm. Antarctica, in this framework, was one of their centers, perhaps their capital. When the ice came, they fled, scattering to South America, Africa, India, and Mesopotamia. They became the founding cultures of the civilizations we know, the source of the advanced knowledge that appears suddenly in the archaeological record around 3000 BCE. This theory aligns with the work of Graham Hancock and others who argue that history is not a straight line of progress, but a cycle. Civilizations rise, achieve greatness, and are destroyed by natural disasters. Survivors pass on fragments of knowledge, which gradually fade until the cycle begins again. In this view, we are not the first advanced civilization, but the latest. From a mystical perspective, some believe that Antarctica holds not just structures, but secrets. Esoteric traditions speak of hidden knowledge, teachings preserved by ancient brotherhoods, mysteries that were too dangerous to be widely known. Antarctica, sealed beneath ice, could be a vault, a library of wisdom waiting for humanity to reach the level of maturity required to access it. During World War II, Germany launched expeditions to Antarctica, claiming territory and establishing a base called New Swabia. Rumors persist that they discovered something there: ancient ruins, advanced technology, or entrance to underground realms. Though most historians dismiss these claims as wartime propaganda, the rumors have fueled decades of speculation. After the war, the United States launched Operation High Jump in 1946, a massive military expedition to Antarctica led by Admiral Richard Byrd. Officially, it was a research mission, but the scale was extraordinary: 4,700 men, 13 ships, and 33 aircraft. The operation ended abruptly after only a few weeks, and Byrd's diary entries, though disputed, allegedly describe encounters with advanced craft and unknown forces. Mainstream historians attribute the early end to harsh weather, but conspiracy theorists argue that something was found and then covered up. Imagine the scene: military vessels cutting through icy waters, helicopters flying over endless white plains, radar detecting anomalies beneath the surface. Then, suddenly, the mission is recalled. Personnel are sworn to secrecy. Reports are classified. What do they find? Was it simply ice and rock, or did they stumble upon something that challenged their understanding of reality? In the decades since, Antarctica has been subject to international treaty. The Antarctic Treaty of 1959 designates the continent as a scientific preserve, banning military activity and territorial claims. On the surface, this seems reasonable, a global commitment to preserve the last wilderness. But some researchers see it differently. They argue the treaty was created not to protect the environment, but to control access, to ensure that whatever lies beneath the ice remains undiscovered, or at least unreported. Consider the restrictions. Antarctica is one of the most regulated places on Earth. Independent exploration is heavily restricted. Visitors must go through approved channels, obtain permits, and follow designated routes. Vast regions are off-limits, declared too dangerous or environmentally sensitive. But what if the real reason is different? What if certain areas are restricted because they contain evidence that would rewrite history? Whistleblowers have occasionally emerged, claiming to have seen structures, entrances, or technology in restricted zones. Their accounts are dismissed, ridiculed, or suppressed. Yet the consistency of the stories is striking. They describe geometric formations, metallic surfaces, and openings in the ice that lead to chambers below. They speak of security protocols, classified missions, and warnings not to speak publicly. One such account came from a scientist who claimed to have worked on a drilling project in the early 2000s. According to his testimony, the team encountered something unexpected at depth, a cavity containing what appeared to be manufactured materials. The project was immediately shut down, the site sealed, and all personnel debriefed with non-disclosure agreements. The scientist, speaking anonymously years later, insisted that what they found was not natural. Another account describes satellite imaging technicians who noticed anomalies in restricted zones. When they reported their findings, they were told the images were classified and that further inquiry would result in termination. The anomalies, they said, showed clear geometric patterns, structures that could not be explained by geology alone. Are these accounts credible? Without verification, we cannot know. But they contribute to a pattern, a sense that Antarctica holds secrets, and that those in power prefer to keep them hidden. Whether the reason is scientific caution, national security, or something more profound, the effect is the same. The public is kept at a distance. From the perspective of ancient knowledge traditions, Antarctica may be more than a physical location. It may represent a threshold, a place where material and metaphysical worlds intersect. In some esoteric teachings, the poles are described as portals, gateways to other dimensions or realms of consciousness. To reach the frozen city, in this view, is not just a matter of drilling through ice, but of attaining a level of spiritual readiness. This aligns with myths of Shambhala, Agartha, and other hidden kingdoms said to exist beneath the Earth's surface. In Tibetan Buddhism, Shambhala is a mystical realm accessible only to those who have achieved enlightenment. In Hindu cosmology, Agartha is a subterranean world where advanced beings dwell. Could Antarctica be the physical anchor for these myths, the place where legend meets geography? The theosophists of the 19th century believed so. Helena Blavatsky and others spoke of root races, advanced human civilizations that existed millions of years ago. One of these races, they claimed, dwelt in a polar region, a land of wisdom and power. When cataclysm came, they withdrew into hidden sanctuaries, waiting for the time when humanity would evolve enough to rejoin them. To the modern skeptic, such ideas are fantasy. But to those who study comparative mythology, the patterns are too consistent to ignore. Across cultures, across millennia, the same themes recur. Lost civilizations, hidden knowledge, beings who came from above or from below, and the promise that one day the truth will be revealed. Imagine if the frozen city is real. If beneath the ice, structures stand intact. What we find? Libraries of knowledge, carved in stone or etched in metal. Technology we cannot yet understand. Evidence of contact with non-human intelligence. Or simply the ruins of a culture that achieved greatness and was forgotten. The implications are staggering. If advanced civilization existed 12,000 years ago, then our understanding of human history collapses. We are not the pinnacle of progress, but merely one chapter in a longer story. The ancients were not primitive but sophisticated, and their knowledge was not superstition but science we have yet to rediscover. And if the builders were not human, if they came from elsewhere, then we are not alone. We never were. The universe is inhabited, and Earth has been visited, perhaps colonized, perhaps guided by forces beyond our comprehension. The frozen city becomes evidence, proof that we are part of a larger cosmic narrative. As we move toward the conclusion of this journey, these questions linger. Who built the city beneath the ice? Were they human, hybrid, or something entirely other? And if they left knowledge behind, are we ready to receive it? The ice keeps its secrets, But the questions echo across time, calling us to dig deeper, to look harder, to dare to imagine that beneath the frozen silence, something extraordinary awaits. In recent years, climate change has brought Antarctica into sharper focus. The ice is melting. Not everywhere, not uniformly, but in critical regions where warming ocean currents undercut the glaciers from below. Satellite data shows that West Antarctica is losing ice at an accelerating rate, contributing to global sea level rise. But this melting also creates an opportunity, the chance to see what lies beneath. As the ice retreats, features that have been hidden for millennia are beginning to emerge. Nunataks, mountain peaks once buried, now protrude through the thinning glaciers. Coastlines that were sealed under ice are becoming visible. And in some regions, structures, whether natural or artificial, are being revealed for the first time in thousands of years. In 2016, a team of researchers working near the Antarctic Peninsula reported an unusual discovery. Using thermal imaging, they detected a large heat signature emanating from beneath the ice. The temperature was significantly higher than surrounding areas, suggesting geothermal activity or possibly a cavity containing liquid water. When they returned with ground-penetrating radar, the scans revealed what appeared to be a chamber, roughly 100 meters wide, with smooth walls and a flat floor. The team was cautious. Geothermal vents are known in Antarctica, and natural caves can form beneath the ice. But the geometry of this chamber was striking. The walls were too straight, the floor too level. One researcher described it as architecturally precise, though he stopped short of claiming it was artificial. News of the discovery spread, but official reports were sparse. The site was declared restricted pending further study, and no additional information was released. To this day, the status of that chamber remains unclear. Was it explored? What was found? The silence suggests either that nothing significant was discovered, or that what was found is being withheld. Similar reports have surfaced from other regions. In 2018, satellite images showed a large rectangular formation partially exposed by melting ice near the coast of Queen Maud Land. The formation measured approximately 400 by 600 meters, with sharp edges and a symmetrical shape. Geologists suggested it could be a tabular iceberg, a flat-topped ice structure that breaks off from ice shelves. But the alignment and dimensions were unusual, and some researchers called for ground investigation. None came. The site is remote, logistically challenging, and outside the areas where research stations are located. Without direct exploration, the formation remains a mystery, visible in satellite images but unexplained. The melting ice also reveals biological surprises. In 2020, scientists drilling through the ice shelf near the Filchneron ice shelf lowered a camera into the ocean beneath. At a depth of 900 meters, in total darkness and near-freezing temperatures, they discovered life: sponges, worms, and other creatures clinging to a rock. The discovery was unexpected, proving that life exists in the most extreme environments, far from sunlight, sustained only by geothermal vents and organic matter drifting from above. If life thrives in such darkness, could structures? Could chambers exist, carved by ancient hands, now sealed beneath ice and ocean, their interiors dry and preserved? The discovery of subglacial lakes like Vostok and Willans proves that liquid water exists beneath the ice. If water exists, then voids exist. And if voids exist, they could contain relics of the past. From the perspective of those who believe in the frozen city, the melting ice is both promise and peril. Promise because it may finally reveal what has been hidden. Peril because melting is uncontrolled, chaotic. Structures could be damaged, artifacts washed away, evidence lost before it can be documented. The race is on to explore before the ice disappears entirely. Some expeditions have been proposed. In 2019, a private group announced plans to use ground-penetrating radar and autonomous drones to survey a region where satellite anomalies had been detected. They sought funding through crowdsourcing, claiming that mainstream science was ignoring the evidence. The campaign raised modest funds but never launched. Legal restrictions, logistical costs, and lack of institutional support proved insurmountable. Yet the technology exists. Drones equipped with radar can fly over vast areas, mapping the bedrock beneath the ice in detail. Submersibles can explore the subglacial lakes, searching for signs of artificial structures or materials. Even drilling, though expensive, is feasible with modern equipment. The question is not whether we can explore, but whether we are allowed to. The Antarctic Treaty governs all activity on the continent. Research must be approved, coordinated, and conducted under strict environmental protocols. Independent exploration is discouraged, and areas of interest are often restricted. Critics argue that this system protects not the environment, but secrecy. That discoveries are made, cataloged, and then buried in classified databases, never reaching the public. Imagine a scenario. A research team, drilling in a remote region, breaks through into a cavity. They lower a camera and see walls, carvings, objects that do not belong. They report their findings to their superiors, who immediately classify the information. The site is sealed, the team debriefed, and the public never learns what was found. Is this paranoia, or is it procedure? Whistleblowers suggest the latter. They claim that protocols exist for handling anomalous discoveries, that military liaisons are embedded in research teams, and that certain findings are automatically classified under national security provisions. Whether true or not, the perception of secrecy fuels speculation and distrust. From a scientific standpoint, the challenge is interpretation. Even if structures are found, proving they're artificial requires careful analysis. Stone can be shaped by natural processes, freeze-thaw cycles, wind erosion, tectonic activity. Metal can occur naturally, meteorites, mineral deposits, volcanic activity. Distinguishing natural from artificial is difficult, especially when access is limited and samples cannot be retrieved. Yet the accumulation of anomalies is compelling. Geometric patterns in satellite images, thermal signatures in unexpected locations, radar scans showing chambers and corridors, ancient maps depicting coastlines that should not be known, myths from around the world describing lost civilizations and lands of ice. Individually, each can be explained. Together, they form a pattern that is harder to dismiss. The melting ice offers a deadline. Within decades, perhaps centuries, much of Antarctica's ice will be gone. What lies beneath will be fully exposed. Structures, if they exist, will be visible. The truth, whatever it is, will emerge. The question is whether we will be ready to accept it. Imagine the moment. A satellite image goes viral, showing a structure undeniably artificial, walls and towers rising from the melting ice. Or a research team broadcasts live footage from a subglacial lake, their camera revealing carvings, symbols, evidence of intelligence. The world watches, stunned. History is rewritten in real time. Or imagine the opposite. The ice melts, revealing only rock and water. The anomalies are explained, one by one, as natural features misinterpreted by eager minds. The frozen city remains a myth, a projection of human desire for mystery and meaning. The truth is mundane, and the speculation fades. Either outcome is possible, but until the ice fully reveals its secrets, we remain in a state of uncertainty, poised between myth and discovery, between ancient legends and modern science. The frozen city may exist, or it may not, but the search itself, the willingness to question and explore, defines us as a species. The ice melts, time advances, and beneath the thinning glaciers, the truth waits, patient and cold. As we reach the end of this journey, we find ourselves standing at the edge of the known world, looking out across a frozen expanse that guards its secrets with silence. The frozen city beneath the ice remains elusive, neither proven nor disproven, existing in that liminal space between possibility and fantasy. What have we learned? That Antarctica was not always frozen. That ancient maps depict coastlines that should be impossible. That satellite technology has detected anomalies, geometric patterns, thermal signatures, formations too precise to easily dismiss. that myths from around the world speak of lost civilizations and great floods, suggesting a shared memory of catastrophe and loss. We have explored the theories. Graham Hancock and the idea of a global civilization destroyed 12,000 years ago. Rand Flemeth and the hypothesis that Antarctica was Atlantis, displaced by a crustal shift. Zecharia Sitchin's more radical claim that ancient visitors from the stars established bases on Earth. Each theory offers an explanation for the mysteries, but none can yet be verified. The legacy of the frozen city, if it exists, is not in stone or metal, but in the questions it forces us to confront. Are we the first advanced civilization, or merely the latest? Is history a linear progression, or a cycle of rise and fall? Are we alone in the universe? Or have we been visited, guided, perhaps even created by forces beyond our understanding? From ancient maps to modern satellites, the evidence accumulates. Not enough to convince the skeptic, but more than enough to provoke wonder. The Pyre Reese map, showing Antarctic coastlines with impossible accuracy. The thermal anomalies detected from space. The radar scans revealing chambers beneath the ice. The geometric formations that appear too regular to be natural. And the silence. The restrictions on independent exploration. The classified missions and sealed sites. The whistleblowers who speak of discoveries never reported. The sense that something is being withheld, that the full truth remains hidden. If the frozen city is real, then its discovery would transform our understanding of history. It would prove that advanced civilizations existed long before Sumeria and Egypt. That knowledge was lost and rediscovered. That humanity's story is deeper, older, and stranger than we imagined. It would suggest that the ancients were not primitive but sophisticated, that they navigated the world, mapped its contours, and built monuments that still puzzle us today. And if the city does not exist, if the anomalies are all natural, the myths mere stories, the ancient maps lucky guesses or artistic imagination, then we are left with the realization that the human mind is endlessly creative, capable of weaving patterns from chaos, meaning from mystery. The frozen city becomes a mirror, reflecting our desire for connection with the past, for evidence that we are part of something larger, something eternal. But perhaps the truth lies in between. Perhaps Antarctica does hold ruins, not of gods or aliens, but of humans like us who adapted to a harsh world, built what they could, and fled when the climate turned. Their cities may be modest, their knowledge limited, but their existence would still be revolutionary. It would push back the timeline of civilization, challenge our assumptions about prehistoric humanity, and prove that our ancestors were more capable than we credit. Imagine living in that forgotten time. The sky vast and cold, the sun low on the horizon, ice fields stretching endlessly, but rivers flowing at the margins, fish abundant in the surrounding seas. A community gathered on the coast, sheltered from the wind, building with stone and wood, watching the stars wheel overhead. They are not primitive. They understand the seasons, navigate by the stars, pass down knowledge through generations. Then the ice comes, not slowly, but in a matter of decades. Glaciers advance, temperatures plummet, the rivers freeze. They abandon their homes, loading boats with what they can carry, sailing north toward warmer lands. Behind them, the city is swallowed by snow and ice, buried layer by layer, until nothing remains visible. Their knowledge scatters, fragments preserved in myth, in symbols, in the occasional map that shows what should not be known. This is the legacy, not of gods or aliens, but of humans who survived, adapted, and remembered, who carried their stories forward, seeding the civilizations that followed. The Anunnaki of Mesopotamia, the Viracocha of Peru, the Osiris of Egypt. Perhaps they were not divine beings, but refugees, bearers of knowledge from the frozen south. Cross-cultural patterns support this. Across the world, flood myths describe a great cataclysm followed by renewal. In nearly every tradition, there are wise strangers who arrive by sea, teach the people agriculture, astronomy, and law, then depart. In nearly every tradition, There are references to a golden age, a time before when knowledge was greater and life was longer. Science offers fragments. Pollen and ice cores proving that temperate plants grew on Antarctica 12,000 years ago. Geological studies showing that the ice sheets are younger than once thought. DNA analyses revealing human migrations that predate recorded history. Sea level data confirming that coastlines changed dramatically at the end of the last ice age. The pieces are there, but the full picture remains hidden, locked beneath miles of ice, waiting for technology to advance, for climate to shift, or for courage to break through bureaucratic barriers. As we close this exploration, one truth emerges. Antarctica is not fully known. What lies beneath its ice is still a mystery. Whether that mystery holds only rock and water, or whether it conceals the ruins of a forgotten civilization, we do not yet know. But the question itself is profound. It challenges us to look beyond textbooks, to consider possibilities we have been taught to dismiss. The frozen city, real or imagined, is a symbol of lost knowledge, of cycles of rise and fall, of the humility required to admit that we do not know everything about our past. It reminds us that Earth is old, that humans have walked its surface for hundreds of thousands of years, and that much of that story is lost, eroded, buried, or drowned. Perhaps one day, a satellite will capture an image that cannot be denied. A structure rising from the melting ice, its walls sharp, its shape deliberate. Or perhaps a drilling team will break through into a chamber, their lights illuminating carvings, artifacts, evidence of intelligence. The world will watch, and history will be rewritten. Or perhaps the ice will melt, revealing only stone. The anomalies will be explained, the myths set aside, and we will accept that the frozen city was a dream, a projection of human longing for mystery in a world increasingly mapped and understood. Either way, the search matters. The willingness to question, to explore, to imagine possibilities beyond the orthodox narrative. This is what defines us. We are a species that looks to the horizon and asks, what lies beyond? We are storytellers, seekers, builders of meaning from fragments of evidence. The frozen city, beneath miles of Antarctic ice, may exist or may not, but its legacy is already written. It is written in the ancient maps that show too much, in the satellite images that provoke wonder, in the myths that cross cultures and centuries, in the questions we dare to ask. Antarctica remains. The ice slowly retreats. Technology advances. And somewhere, beneath the frozen silence, truth waits. Not the truth we expect, perhaps, but the truth that has always been there, patient as stone, cold as the void between stars. When kingship descended from heaven, it rested first in Eridu. So say the ancient tablets. But perhaps before Eridu, before Sumeria, before any civilization we know, kingship rested somewhere else. Somewhere cold, somewhere forgotten, somewhere beneath the ice. The journey does not end here. It merely pauses, waiting for the next discovery, the next image, the next brave soul willing to drill through the ice and see what lies below. Until then, we stand at the threshold, gazing toward the frozen south, wondering, what secrets does Antarctica hold? What knowledge was lost when the ice came? And when the truth finally emerges, will we recognize it? Will we accept that our history is older, stranger, and more wondrous than we dare imagine? The clay tablets of Sumeria preserved memory for 4,000 years. The ice of Antarctica may preserve memory for twice as long. And just as we read those tablets today, marveling at their mysteries, so too may future generations read the ice, uncovering a story we have only begun to suspect. A story of a city, a civilization, a world before the freeze, hidden for 12,000 years beneath the eternal cold, waiting. From maps to satellites, from myth to science, the frozen city remains one of humanity's greatest mysteries. The ice keeps its secrets, but the questions endure, carved not in clay, but in the human heart, in our endless search for truth beneath the surface of the known world.